topic of today is something that is very important for both of us, which is having great literature as bilingual family. And that's something that I was saying that is not super difficult, but sometimes it gets challenging finding good quality books. So I want to introduce you first because I think it's very important for our audience to know who you are. This is our friend Mariana, or would you like to introduce yourself? I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm Mariana Llanos, and first of all, I'm a mom of three beautiful bilingual children, and I'm also a writer. I write children's books. So I'm very deep into the world of bilingual literature, definitely because I write it and I also consume it. I also buy bilingual books.
Yeah, so that's why I invited Mariana to talk about this topic because both of us have bilingual children. Both of us are very passionate about finding good quality books. And what happens is that a lot of the times when we're trying to find bilingual literature for our children, we may find what do we find?
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, sometimes it's challenging, and sometimes you find good literature in your area, depending on where you are, obviously in the country. I think we're focused here in the United States. So yeah, so sometimes you can, I guess, but some other times it's challenging. And many times what we find is books that were originally written in English and they're translated, which is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with translating books, obviously, but you see Clifford, the Big Red Dog, Perro Rojo, and all these works. I mean, that the children, they can read that in English. I don't think they need to, to have them in Spanish anyways.
Especially if you have bilingual children. Like, I don't know you, but both of my kids won't prefer like a translated version of their favorite ones that they can read in English.
They will rather read in English, obviously. So the book that is in the other language, in the target language that they're learning, should be something that is more interesting, something different. Because if they know that they can read it in English, they won't want to read it in Spanish, definitely. So so this is a big. I see that there are two sides to this. One is the publishing side, and the other one is the consumer side, right? So I'm, like I said, in both, because I write books that are bilingual. And as a writer, sometimes it is even challenging to find publishing houses that want to publish our work that is in Spanish, because they will say that that doesn't sell. So that's where I have to appeal to our community, because if we're not buying the books, the publishers, they won't publish those books because it's a business for them. I mean, if you rush the same way, we'll rush to buy the Harry Potter books. If we rush and rally behind the authors who are trying to publish these bilingual books, then we will create a market, and publishers will want to publish more of our books. And this is the problem that we have right now, that usually when they take you on, they usually have to look at their numbers, and you can't blame them, because that's how our economy works, sadly, right? So
yes, but I have to interject, Mariana, because I know you're very kind, and I have to say I do not agree with the publishing houses, especially with the big ones. A lot of indie or self-published authors that are really, really great quality.
They are doing a job. Yes.
So I think there's something else behind this explanation. And the issue is like just a few weeks ago, we had like some of the awards from children's literature. And guess who were the really big winners? A lot of their own voices, stories, like really beautiful, amazing books that I'm pretty sure they were rejected at the first time. So I think the question, it will be like, okay, how as a community can we start promoting these books? But most importantly, like the issues that I have with a lot of books that are translated to Spanish, is that a lot of times also many things get lost in translation. That is true. Even if you get a good translator. But I have to say, I've seen a lot of books,
Yeah.
really bad translation. No.
Yeah.
No compren esos libros, por favor, porque
No.
el problema con esos libros es que, o sea, es una traducción realmente de baja calidad que no refleja lo que los niños están aprendiendo, uno. Y dos, realmente muchas de esas traducciones no tienen sentido, o sea, no es traducir algo literalmente, o sea, tienes que
No, no, no.
traducirlo con un contexto del libro. Y la
It's
otra cosa
painful,
que
yes.
yo tengo un problema con esos libros es que también no reflejan la diversidad. Muchas veces, por ejemplo, como dices tú, sí, pueden traducir el libro de Harry Potter, pero, o sea, muchos de estos libros que estamos dándole a nuestros hijos no reflejan la diversidad de nuestra comunidad. Entonces, de
Exactly.
ahí la necesidad de que encontremos autoras como tú, que son autoras bilingües, que realmente saben la cultura, que tienen un contexto acerca de la cultura. Y más adelante tú tienes que mostrarnos los libros que tienes, porque me
Oh, yes,
encantan
yes. Claro que
todos.
sí.
Y la verdad, o sea, son preciosos. Y además, o sea, tú haces tus traducciones concientizadas, o sea, tú sabes el contexto, no vas
Claro,
a
sí.
traducir palabra por
No, no.
palabra. Yo
Lo que
he
yo
visto,
hago, claro, no, lo que yo hago es reescribir, yo reescribo, ¿no? I rewrite the stories. So, eso es lo que yo hago cuando hago porque normalmente yo escribo en inglés, por lo que yo tengo que mandarle a mi agente solamente lee en inglés, entonces, ¿no? Y los publishing houses, ellos son en inglés todo, ¿no? Y yo de ahí traduzco mi propio libro, pero lo reescribo, hay un proceso de reescribirlo, porque no, si no, claro, se puede traducir, pero hay algo que se pierde, siempre hay el espíritu, el soul, ¿no? Del libro que se queda, ¿no? Y yo prefiero por eso reescribirlo, porque aparte que cada lenguaje tiene su ritmo, tiene su poesía, entonces hay que encontrarle justamente ese punto de que el idioma te va dando justamente esa poesía. Por eso es que prefiero reescribirlos y que mis traducciones no sean literales, ¿no? Obviamente. Pero
y eso es uno de los primeros puntos que quería compartir con las familias. Cuando estamos hablando de encontrar libros de calidad para las familias bilingües, me refiero precisamente a estos libros. Los
claro,
libros, yo no tengo duda que en el mundo de las grandes casas de publicación hay excelentes traducciones, pero lo que dice Mariana es cierto, cada idioma tiene su propio ritmo. Tú no puedes traducir, por ejemplo, el Quijote al inglés.
o sea, claro, sí puedes, pero
Literalmente, palabra
hay
por
mucho que se
palabra.
pierde, claro.
La tristeza que yo tengo es esa, que a veces yo digo, ay, este libro está en español, y voy y lo miro, y, ay, la traducción.
Ujú.
Por favor, familias, o sea,
Hay algo que se pierde.
no compren esos libros porque le estamos diciendo a las casas de publicación que eso es aceptable. Para mí no lo es.
Yo
Para
creo
mí
que,
no es.
yo creo que ahora hay tantos autores bilingües que no hay excusa, ¿no? Que no hay excusa realmente. Al menos, obviamente, un libro excelente que sea de un autor francés y que quieres ponerlo en el inglés, bueno, lo traduces. Pero si habemos autores que podemos escribir en los dos idiomas, entonces es mejor, obviamente, usarnos a nosotros, justamente. Pero a veces también el problema es para los libros que son solamente en español, porque acá los libros que traen en español los traen por ejemplo, de países latinoamericanos, son libros muy buenos y los traducen acá al inglés, contratan un traductor y los traducen al inglés, ¿no? Entonces yo no sé la verdad cuánto queda. Acá justo mis perros están en concierto porque han venido alguien a visitar los vecinos. Y los perros no soportan visitantes.
Okay, so I like to say what we said, but in English now. We were talking about finding quality books in Spanish. A lot of times what we find is bad translations. And that is a huge issue for parents that are trying to kind of like really have quality books in our lives. And bottom line, these books are not either cheaper, and some of these books are seriously expensive. And when you're reading them, the translations are really poor. So we were talking about like the importance of having the book written by bilingual authors, people that definitely know the rhythm of each language, being able to, like express what they want to express. And also, of course, the quality of own voices in our library. There's nothing more fantastic than, reading a story about, like, for example, Mexico, and written by somebody who lives, the culture and understands the intricacies of the culture. So that's something that I really admire about your books, by the way, Mariana, because I think, well, my friend Mariana is from Peru originally. She comes from a house of journalists and poets.
Well, yeah,
Her
my
has been.
parents are journalists. Yes. So, Elena, can you open
Yes,
the door?
so she really knows about these things, and she reflects those things in her books. I actually got your poem book. Remember you had it. It's
Yeah,
social
poesía hablada.
justice, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
looking for it, and I really, I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in my children's library,
Oh
but
no,
I
I know.
couldn't find it.
I'm the same. This one.
Yes,
Here. Yes.
Poesía Alada. I love that book so much. By the way, because it also, can you show us a little bit inside?
Yeah. Yes. Of course. Yeah. So it's poetry in Spanish, but also with illustrations. So the whole theme is poesía y arte para volar, poetry and art to fly or to soar. And so yeah. So here are some of the
And I
illustrations.
love that because when we received that book, it was a few years ago. Both of my kids, the first thing they did is started to color it. They started
Yeah. Yeah.
coloring it. They thought it was a coloring book. So it was
Well,
a
that was the
great
idea.
activity
Yes.
to read the poem. And while we were reading the poem in Spanish, we were coloring the paper. So I love that book. I
My
think
dog,
it's
my
really
dog is
beautiful.
throwing a fit here. She doesn't want me to talk, I guess, but
The
yeah,
the doggy. Do you have
yeah,
any tips for the
so
doggy?
she's so excited now because there are some neighbors outside apparently. So, oh, okay, plumbing guys outside. I know. Okay, you're fine. So, yeah, so some of these illustrations I made it myself. And some others, I summoned a few friends and who are artists and illustrators. So, to help me kind of bring the soul of the poem, in, with the illustration, because I thought, they can complement each other, right? So it can be something visual and also something that you read. So, yeah, so that was the whole idea. I really like this book, and I'm looking forward to publishing a second poetry book. I'm working
I
on my
love
poem.
it. And I have to say, it's really hard and difficult sometimes to find good poetry books that are, good for children in Spanish.
All in
I
Spanish
understand
from
that there are
here.
a lot of
Yes.
lullabies. There are lullabies and, for babies. But for older
Mm-hmm.
kids, this book is a total recommendation. Besides the other books that Mariana has written, she's gonna talk about them, of course, but yeah, that's kind of like the point. Trying to find authentic voices in children's literature, it has become such an important part of it, and I love for families to start paying more attention about this because it really matters. It's talking about like how children can learn from different representations in books, and I feel like that's the first place where children can start seeing either themselves or their friends in books. And sometimes we assume it's TV, but I have to say, most of the time, if you're not careful, they may not see themselves in TV either. TV is such like a business enterprise, I always have to remind my children that what you see on TV is not real.
Yeah, yes, of course. Yeah, some of those, yeah, the themes and values that we see, they are kind of a box, right? And they don't, you don't really learn about the world, I guess, as you do in books. I think books have much more, and also because you are reading, you are creating this bond with the characters, with the situations, and you can see yourself, not only see yourselves, but also see others. And I think that's one of the most important parts about literature, that it can help us connect, right, and feel what others are feeling too, and put ourselves in other people's shoes, which is so important, to have empathy nowadays. So it always, well, obviously in my house we do a little bit of everything. Like in every house, we watch TV, we watch movies, we read books. No, but always my favorite kind of media is books, obviously. And I try, whenever there's a book and a movie, to have my kids, okay, let's read the book first, and when we're done with the book, we're going to watch a movie. So, so that way we can compare what's going, or we can see what they left behind in the movie or things like that. So that's usually the most important. But going back to bilingual books specifically, or multicultural books, since we don't have a lot of TV or media that represents the wide range of people who live in this country, I think that's why books are so important, because they're doing that job. Books that are published by big publishing houses, but also books that are being published by independent authors as well. They're doing really a good job bringing multicultural stories, multicultural characters and situations, so they help kids see themselves in the books.
Yes, and actually that's something that I'm very happy about, like right now with the indie publishing
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of
Yeah,
self-publishing
they're filling a
authors.
void. They're definitely filling a void that is, but I think in the last year or so, I've noticed that the publishing houses are kind of catching up, and they're realizing that they're lacking in their Spanish department and all that, because I've seen more requests. I also write for the educational market, so I see more requests of stories that are multicultural and all that, because there's a void, and they're realizing that they've been they've been very sluggish, with that.
Yeah, but there is
So
a huge market, and actually I wrote an article
it
on my
is.
website suggesting some online websites that I think they're really, really good in supplying families with Spanish books. You can find them in my website. But I do like to recommend authors like you, because besides what you just write, and like you write both languages, but I think you have a very amazing respect for both languages as well. So I like to talk about something controversial in Espanol, because I'm a Spanish teacher myself, and lately the issue with the diversity and trying to kind of like merge the voices of using, because we in Spanish we are used to only having a binary. So there
Mhm.
is a huge movement now, like trying to be inclusive, and use using the ending of either X, which a lot of people do not like to use anymore,
Mhm.
and or E and or E in
Yeah,
Espanol, to
yeah,
include it.
Latine.
So I think last 2 weeks la Real Academia Española dijo que ellos no reconocían eso y que ellos no lo iban a aceptar. Bueno, yo no sé cuál es tu opinión, pero personalmente mi opinión, como profesora de español más y más, me doy cuenta de que definitivamente sí hay una gran necesidad de ajustar el lenguaje de una manera respetuosa hacia las personas que no se sienten identificados ni con uno ni con el otro. Entonces, quería hablar contigo acerca de eso. Tú que escribes libros y escribes libros en español, ¿qué piensas?
Well, I think, like Bob Dylan said, times are changing. So, so yeah, definitely we have to be respectful of that. There are many things we don't understand or we can't, when we were younger, we wouldn't even think about, so that are changing. So for me, it's something that is a work in progress. We see how it's progressing. Now, I think languages change when many people start adopting certain words words or phrases. So they usually don't change because a group of people say it, right? So they're saying, okay, we're gonna change the word Latinx to Latine, or and then everybody's gonna do it. It doesn't work like that. It works the other way around, at least for what I've been reading and trying to understand. I think the change is gonna come. I just don't know when. It's
It may
probably
take about 50 years, maybe. I don't know.
exactly. So I mean, I know it's gonna catch on at some point, probably, but I don't know if it's right now. But right now, what we do is we follow our conscience, and we, for
Yeah.
example,
And that's something that, I have to say. I saw it in the board in Spanish teaching, board, and a lot of teachers were like, well, we're just gonna follow these, and the others were like, no, we're just gonna follow that. And the funny part is like what you said. People change language. I don't think it's the other way around.
no, it's not the other way around.
And
Now,
the Spanish we speak in here, like in the United States, is definitely not the same Spanish that we
no.
speak in other
No,
countries.
we speak a Spanglish thing, something. Yes. Well,
And
now
that's
I'm
why
tell
a
you
lot of people were not in agreement with the X.
yeah, yes.
Because
Well,
we
to be
can
honest,
emphasize it and say
yeah,
Latinx, but in other countries, like how come? Like how can you pronounce that? Because if you don't
yeah,
speak English, how can you?
yeah. I mean, yeah, it still sounds weird. In Spanish, sounds absolutely weird, and I understand the sentiment behind it, and I support it because I think we do have to be inclusive, and I think we have to treat people with respect, even if we sometimes don't understand, as much. But the way everything is changing, or it changes too fast. But I think we have to respect. And in my personally, I don't really use Latinx or Latine because it doesn't sound to me. I mean, I can't even remember it unless I'm writing out. Oh, okay, so it's X. But yeah. So in my position, like for me, the O is the inclusive voice, right? So for me, the O is the umbrella.
That's what pretty much la Real
Yes, yes.
Academia del
I mean,
Lenguaje argue
exactly.
about. That's
That's for
how
me. But
they explain it. Like they say, oh, it's already included.
yes,
Bottom line, I think
but exactly.
it's
There's a but.
very interesting. First of all, to hear that. And I have to say, in my website, I did had like the chance to start changing that, and I've been trying to include the Latine.
Yeah.
And the reason is the same way, I've been pretty much becoming more aware myself too when I enter a space to give my pronouns and make feel, people feel more at
Yeah,
ease
feel
with me.
welcome too. Yeah.
Yes, and so when I'm teaching new generations, children that are just learning the language, I try to make a space to make the point that yes, in Spanish we do not have a neutral. It's not like in English.
Exactly. That's the point. We don't have a neutral, but with me, at least, I mean, this is my personal view. Obviously, for me, the way I conduct myself and my actions will say more than the way I write. I don't know if I'm making sense, but for me, it's about respecting everyone, and I will advocate for everyone to have the same rights, because for me it goes to that. Yeah, that I believe everybody has to have the
So
same
you
rights.
able the right to say yes, it's all right, it's approved.
Yes, yeah, no, yeah, yes, exactly. But I will tell you this but I understand the Latinx and I understand the Latine and I respect it as well. So if someone wants to use, for example, I do have a group of, we're a group of authors who are pushing for inclusion in children's literature, and our name is Latin Speech. And I came up with a name, so because I said, if there are many Latino authors who are using this definition, then I want to include them as well, so yeah, let's use Latinx, because Latinx doesn't take anything from me either, so that's what I feel, if someone feels
So
better
that's
because
something that I think as a family, and for me at least, as a pattern of younger children who are, trying to identify themselves as well, they're growing, and we are in increasing different spaces. It's important, and for me, like sometimes I look for books that do reflect that also. And I know in Latin America, we are not there yet.
no,
We
yes,
are
no.
not there yet.
But Johanna, there's also this point that that we have to find a common ground and let people be. So if you feel more comfortable using the term Latino as an umbrella term, okay. If you use more comfortable using the term Latine as an umbrella, okay. So let's stop calling people stupid or dumb or you don't know anything.
I
Or
don't think the groups have ever
well,
calling anybody
there
stupid.
are people, especially on Twitter,
Oh,
people get
definitely. You
crazy.
always
My
encounter
goodness.
people like that. I think the most important
Yes,
for me is like using languages to really support community
yes,
and
yes, of course.
so I found out that children never really question these. The people that are actually questioning are adults.
No,
And
no, yeah,
especially,
that's true. No, but you know what? It gets wild. It gets wild. People get these ideas. No, it should be like this. It should be like that. Or
oh
the
yeah,
people who
we
want to.
can find
Or the,
all we want about like a
yeah,
tiny little
yes.
thing, and that's what I found hilarious. I always say, like I may respect whatever La Rai said, but for me,
No, of course.
this is
Yes,
more
yes.
important. And
Yeah, yes.
and I have to say, for me, including a bunch of people in my community and seeing them represented in whatever I'm writing is more important than
Absolutely. What the right says, of course.
Right.
Now,
Because
for me,
bottom line,
Laura,
they don't have a monopoly in a language.
no, 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 obviously. No, no, no. Yes. And I think they have to be open-minded too with the changes in the society. And they have to start looking at how language is going to be changing in the next years, because I know it will, and we will all have to adapt. Now, for me, I do use La RAE a lot because I write in, or when I do some work, I do have to follow their guidelines because there has to be some commonness, right? I mean, I have to use words that everybody's going to understand. I mean, I can't use words that are understood only in Peru. So I have to use words that are in the dictionary.
Some colloquialisms, Mariana.
Yes,
Like which I
exactly.
think also are very important. Like
Yeah,
by the way, I always have to say, like for example, the word papaya. Like
yeah,
there are places in Latin America that you're not supposed to say that word.
yeah.
And those are the beautiful things about having this commonality of Spanish, because by the way, like Spanish is a language that it was taught to us, like it's
Mhm.
not, so it will have so many variations.
It will,
For instance, you
yeah,
speak
yeah.
Spanish very differently than I speak Spanish. So what I'm saying in reality is like I have a really hard time when I hear people telling me like, oh, I want to learn Spanish from you because you're from Colombia and in Colombia they speak better Spanish. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, according to whom?
According
It's
to whom, yeah.
problematic.
Yes. Yes, yes, I know, like the standard, right? But there's not a standard really, because depending on where you were raised, I mean, there's not like a better language, but there are, when you write for an educational market, there are rules, so that's the
Oh,
thing,
I'm pretty
obviously.
sure
But,
those are the rules,
yeah, yes,
that have
yes,
to be
you have
followed.
to follow.
But I
Yeah,
do have a
it,
lot of issues with a lot of those rules,
yeah, yeah,
in
no,
fact.
no,
And
it's
I'm
true.
happy that there's people that are open-minded like you that are willing to kind of like see
Oh,
beyond.
of course,
It's the
yes.
industry because what I found very troublesome is like people who are saying like, no, I'm not gonna take this or I'm not gonna, accept this, and I speak better Spanish, and I'm like, wait a minute, what is this
No,
going
no, there are
on?
some people who are trying to cling, completely. But like I said, the times are changing, everything, our society is changing, and we just have to be flexible and be understanding, because if we want to be part of good change, we also have to be open to good change. So being inclusive towards other people is not bad change. It's good
No,
change, it's what we
and
want.
there's so many ways to speak Spanish, and there's so many ways
Yes,
to speak that language.
absolutely.
And there's so many
Yeah.
like colloquialisms and regionalisms
Yes,
and
yes, and we
accents.
have to respect them as well,
And that's
obviously.
a
Yes.
richness in itself. And that's, at least for me and my family, I find it adorable. I think, especially when you find books that, have like different tones to it, to a
Yeah.
language. Or they use, like traditional languages. Like I think you had. I don't have any of the later books that you had because I haven't,
Mhm.
had the chance to see them yet. But you did wrote a book about a Inca girl.
Yeah,
Can you
yes,
tell me a
yes,
little
yes.
bit about her?
Yeah. Yeah, it's this one here. So it's called Kutu, the Tiny Inca Princess. And yeah, so it's basically it's a Ñusta. Ñusta is a princess in Quechua. So this book is in English. I wrote it in English and in Spanish, and I also incorporated some phrases in Quechua. So there's a
Yeah,
lot of text in Quechua as well. Well, I do not speak Quechua, sadly, but I had
yeah.
someone
But you did
translate.
represent it in that
Yes,
book
yes. I mean,
because it was
if
part
I'm
of.
writing, yeah, I'm writing a book about the Andes. I mean, there has to be Quechua, so it would be a lack of respect, not to include Quechua. There are millions of people who speak Quechua in South America, so, and I think it's time to kind of stop that, like, oh, indigenous languages are not cool anymore. So no,
They're
so
becoming the same, people and publishers. If you're ever watching this live, it's
yeah.
becoming a theme.
Oh yes, yes, yes. It's this. I sell this book really well, and then my
It's
next book actually.
beautiful. I wanna have that one and the other one, the one that we posted as the
Yeah, well, that's my latest book, and that's coming out May 1st.
oh,
This is not
can you tell us
out
a
yet.
little bit more about that one? Yeah, that one, Road Little
Yes,
Chasquis, the
this
Chasquis. And
this is
it's a
brand new
beautiful,
translation.
the
Yes,
story of the Chasquis.
and also in Spanish. Corre,
Oh my
pequeño
God,
Chasqui.
I have to get some of the, like, I have to get those two books to my library.
Yes, I'm very proud because with these books I wrote the two versions as well in English and in Spanish. I mean, the publisher was ready to hire a translator actually for the book, and I said, no, 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 I'm gonna be the translator. And they were like, really? Because sometimes they don't know you because you don't really talk to them. Is everything is via email and stuff, so they
Uh-huh.
don't know
Uh-huh.
how fluent I am in Spanish. I mean, hello, I'm way more fluent in Spanish than in English. So but they don't know that. They don't know that, obviously. So I had to explain. Well, I'm actually, I was Spanish is my first language, and I'm a writer. So because you do have to have some quality. I mean, not because you speak Spanish you can translate and write a book either. So you have to be a little bit of a writer as well, right? So that's what they wanted to know. I said, no, yes, I'm gonna translate my own book. I always do. So here are the two, and these were illustrated by mi tocaya, Mariana Ruiz Johnson, and she's from Argentina, de
Oh,
Argentina.
it's beautiful. I love the illustration. So perhaps we can do like a little giveaway for your launching on my website.
Yes, yes, let's do. I don't
I
have any
love
copies
it because
yet.
actually I mean, I know a lot of people may already know the story of the Chaskis, but Chaskis were amazing, amazing persons and a cultural, like thing for the Inca Empire. And so these are the books that we want in our libraries, in our bilingual
Yes.
family libraries. The books that
And
are written with conscience, that are being translated to the Spanish or written in the Spanish, that may bring a lot of the cultural aspects as well. And I have to say, well, research made
Yes,
respect and own
respectful,
voices. Because
absolutely.
bottom
Yes.
line, I'm not saying like a person do not have any right, to write about something else, but it has to be done seriously in respectful ways. And I have to say, like we need more books like that, especially for youth, for children.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, for me, it's kind of mind blowing that people here don't know what chasquis are, and just shows that in schools they are not really taught anything about the Inca Empire, which, by the way, was the largest empire of the America continent. It was the largest empire at some point. So, and it's amazing people barely know that it was, that the capital was in Peru, right, in Cusco, and that, so that's basically what people know. So,
Yeah.
but chassis are basically no, fleet-footed messengers, like couriers that work to bring messages during the times of the Incas, to bring messages from one point to the other, and usually to the king, or very, very important things, or they would transfer packages and things like that. So it was really nice to write about this character and do all the research, because obviously the story is very short, but then there's so many hours of research
Oh,
because you want to get it right. And the story, I mean, I know about Peruvian history because I'm Peruvian, but still I had to study a lot because there are many things that I don't remember from school, or I didn't really, deepen anymore in school. So
because
I
that's
had,
reality, Mariana. I
yeah,
think I also grew up in Colombia. I took
yeah.
history, Latin American history. They teach you way more history than here for sure. But
Hmm.
but they still leave out a lot of, especially with the indigenous cultures. A lot of the
Yes,
history that they
absolutely.
teach you, it starts with the colonial times, and
Yeah.
a lot of the indigenous knowledge and stuff like that is not deepened. So for a lot of people like us, we will have to go and do a lot of more research. And for me, like right now, I'm very excited about learning more, because I think there's more people like us that are
Hmm.
trying to deep their knowledge and understanding about these things, because we are realizing that this is very valuable and it needs to be preserved and for future generations. So that's something that I definitely want in the literature that I'm offering my children.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that it's not possible for them to read other types of books and stuff like that, but I think those are great points for when you're trying to find quality bilingual books for your
And
children,
it's
your
also
family.
important that these books are respectful, because sometimes we have our own biases. For example, with Chasky, I was really greatly surprised with the publisher that they were trying to be respectful, so respectful. So they would, because when you sell your manuscript and they take care of the illustrations, so you don't have a lot of saying. At least that's what people say, right? Oh, when you sell your manuscript, you don't have a lot of say into what's gonna
Uh-huh.
happen in your book. But not really. They asked my input on every stage, of the creation of the book, making
Great.
sure that it was respectful with culture, with history, and also with the character of Chasky. When Mariana first illustrated it, he was lighter. His skin was lighter. So that was something that we discussed. Okay, we're thinking, I wanted to be the color of real people of Peru because brown is beautiful too. So let's not make it light skin. So, so they, corrected the skin tone immediately. And we also worked on having some of the illustrations inside. Let me see. Well, the book is not put together because this is just a proof. So,
I
when I
know
move it,
it's coming. It's coming, people. We'll have it. We'll have it
yeah,
for the
yes, yes, it will come. But for example, some of the details here, let me see. For example, on this one. So in this page, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna hold it so it doesn't fall apart. But oops. Okay. Well, so here, for example, when the little Chasky is
uh-huh.
with the Koya, which is the queen, so they have a kipu, and then you see the shape of the windows are trapezoidal as are the windows, typical windows in Inca architecture. So we were making sure that the things, even the architecture, the buildings were, oops, sorry. So, let me show you here. So, for
Oh, it's
example, you see the
beautiful.
bases there. Yes, it uses some iconography that is from the Incas as well. So,
Lovely.
Mariana, the illustrator, she was
Lovely.
very respectful about the shapes, the architecture, the clothing, and everything that she could, the colors. And now you see the son there, Inti. He is, she used like also, the iconography of, Incas. So, so it would be in a way, even though this is a work of fiction and it's a children's book, that we would still be respectful and celebrate actually the culture of Peru or the Andes, basically, not only Peru, but the Andes.
Yes, yes, because that's another misconception. People think like, oh, it's only the country or certain country,
No,
and I
no,
always
no,
have to
no. I
remind
mean,
everybody like that used to be a piece of land that it was, there were many people together.
of
Like the
course.
concept of countries is very modern in in
And
in, in
the
reality.
yeah, yes, yes, they're new. So, and the Inca Empire went from Colombia, I think part of Colombia, all Ecuador, all Peru, all Bolivia, north of
And there's still
Argentina, and
many,
almost all
many
Chile.
descendants from the Inca people,
Yes,
like, I mean, like, that's another misconception that I think is very important to teach our children. Indigenous culture is very alive.
yeah,
Indigenous languages are very
they
alive.
are
Quechua,
alive.
as you
Absolutely.
said, like many millions of people speak Quechua, not only in Peru, but in
And not only
Bolivia,
Quechua,
even in the
exactly.
south part of Colombia. They have their own colloquialisms, their own way to speak it, because it's not only one type of Quechua.
No,
So I
no,
mean,
of course.
but those things are very important to pass to next generations, and
Yes.
and to let them know like these people are real people, and bottom line, a lot of us descend from a lot of the
Yes, of
indigenous
course.
people as
We
well.
have, yeah, yes, of course. We have in our DNA. We go do a 23andMe DNA sample, and we find, some, some of our ancestors, were from, those regions, and usually in our countries, they only teach us to look up at our European ancestors. But we also have a lot of Andean ancestors, and they usually want to throw dirt on them, right? So like, okay, don't talk about this side, or black also, descent from black people as well. But usually we only want to celebrate our European ancestors, so that's still that mentality, that colonial mentality that still lives in our minds. And I think it's a work in progress, little by
Yes,
little. We're gonna get rid of that. So
yes. And
trying to,
literature of quality,
yes,
and
exactly.
stories that really reflect that richness and
And
culture.
celebrate, exactly. They
Yes,
celebrate, they
and
elevate.
show that the original culture, because that's another thing. Like sometimes there's some books that I have to kind of like pretty much put down. I can't
Yeah,
resist them.
yeah,
It's so offensive.
yeah. Well,
So
I don't know if you saw not long, just a few days ago, it was all over the internet about this book, Los Indios Pieles Rosas. That is a book, Spanish, from a publisher in Spanish. It's called Los Indios Pieles
I
Rosas.
saw it. I saw it,
And
and
I
they were
saw,
defending it. They were defending it. I was like, no,
and I was
no.
like, my God, I mean, do you live in this century or, I mean, who in these times is publishing things like that? I mean, the illustrations were beautiful. If you look at the book without considering the content, the the author, he's a good author. I mean, he knows how to write, obviously, how to tell a story. But it was so offensive.
Yes.
I mean, something like the color of their skin was scary. Things like that. Like, I mean, who would say that nowadays? You don't say that nowadays. Maybe my grandma
Yeah,
would say that.
the issue is this. You will say like, who will write something like that? And the reality is like, I think more and more we're seeing that there's division. Like it's becoming like you're either this or. And I'm like, why? If you want to be just respectful,
Exactly, just
like
respectful.
don't do those things. And I have to say, there's a lot of racism, covert racism
Yes.
supporting these things. Like people will say, I'm not racist, but but
No,
I will defend this, and I'm like,
what I think that, yeah, no, no. What I think what this does is preserving dangerous stereotypes. You know, it's preserving stereotypes that should not be there anymore. That's it. So I don't think the author sat down and thought, oh, I'm gonna be racist today. What should I write about? So it's
no,
not
but it's a lot of covert racism.
yes,
Like sometimes, and I have
yes.
to say that to a lot of, especially Latin people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a lot of issues with
Oh,
that because we have a lot of biases, that were
oh,
implanted
yes.
somehow by older
Worse than in
generations.
the United States, I would
And
say. Yeah,
we need to work with those stereotypes and biases and
yes,
prejudices first ourselves and become conscious to don't pass those things to younger generations. Like
yes,
bottom
yes,
line. But if you're not accepting that you have them, how are in the world you're going to
yes.
fix it?
But
Like
what is really surprising is that a book like that passed the editorial team and made it in the market for 2 years because that book was published in 2018. So it made
wow.
2 years without before someone saying, "Hey, hello, what am I reading?" It was so offensive, and I was feeling like, okay, I was offended. I'm not even Native American, but I was feeling offended. No, it was really yucky. It was really yucky.
I happened to see it, and a lot of like people who were actually writers, they were like, "How come this is like even accepted?"
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
one more time it shows, that even though we are progressing, there are sectors and groups that
Are
are
resisting. Are
well,
resisting.
because change is hard. I always tell people, and I
Yeah.
even tell my children.
But Johanna, if you have seen the book, you've read the book, the author could have written the same book with other characters, with monsters, with aliens from Mars, with anything else. He could have had those as characters with the same story, with the same premise and everything. But no, he chose los indios, pieles rosas, and they were clearly Native Americans. So that's what I was like. Why he just? I would have chosen Martians. Something that doesn't exist, right? Or some, I don't know, some mythical
Yeah,
creatures.
but at the end, what was the message? Like bottom line, like for me, that's a lot of biases and prejudice and racism, covert racism.
Yeah.
When we are trying to justify things like that, and bottom line, if you saw like I saw it not that long ago that in especially in children's literature, most of the characters are either only one race, white.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the second category is animals.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes,
And then
exactly.
the rest come, like black and indigenous and other
Yeah.
races. And in my mind, it's like, oh, so animals represent better. I mean, I'm super partial to animals because my website is Mama Tortuga.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I love animals. Sometimes they're better than humans, to be honest. But yeah,
This it shows still like the lack of consciousness that we still are encountering, especially in the publishing
yes, yes.
and children's publishing business. So we are happy to support authors like you, and we are
Thank
happy to
you.
support indie authors that are
Yeah,
creating quality books. And
very
what we
conscious.
want at
Yes.
the end is like, tell more parents and tell more families like these books
Now
are
I'm gonna tell you also, Johanna. I know there are many. I know them. Many indie authors, and I have been an indie author too. I've self-published several books. Just that the latest years, I've gone into traditional publishing. But I'm very respectful. But there are some indie authors still out there who are not doing a good job. Not long ago, I remember I saw a book. And it was this lady who wrote a book about the people coming to the United States to ask for asylum. So it was just in the middle of all this, and I remember looking at the book, and I was like, my God, who writes things like this? So it was
Oh
You know,
my God.
I mean, it was like, oh, I want to go to America because I want to be safe in America. And I was like, okay, hello, but if the child is from El Salvador, he's already in America. That's what I told her that, right? He's already in America. So it wouldn't make sense that he's going to say, I want to go to America because he's already in America because El
Yeah.
Salvador is in America too. And oh, I mean, they all almost killed me in this group of in the, you know, but I mean, but I was saying, well, but that's the truth, you know, if, and I was trying to tell, if you don't know anything about this, about being an immigrant, about being a, you know, a refugee, then probably don't
Yeah,
read about
I
it.
know
No,
something you already
yes,
know.
read
And
about something else.
that's the issue. I've
Yes,
seen so
exactly.
many books for children and in Spanish with bad translations. The
Yeah.
stories are crap.
Hmm.
And now I'm like, I'm not going to spend any money on these books. And I'm sorry. And I used to go every year to the Miami Book Fair, and only
Hmm.
mainly just to get Spanish books for
Spanish
my
book.
children,
Yeah.
quality Spanish books for my children. Because let's face it, if you are raising bilingual children and you're not offering them quality books,
Then you are not raising bilingual children.
unbelievable. Because both of my children don't want baby books anymore. Like,
No, of
and
course,
you
yes.
can find adorable baby books, but like I'm crying sometimes because I want chapter books.
Well, you
And
need to look into you need to look into El Barco de Vapor. It's an award that are given. They have different chapters in different countries, and you can find them on Amazon. And you just type El Barco de
oh,
Vapor, and
okay,
they are
I'm gonna
different
look for
ages.
them
Yes,
because
and those are really good books. They're published. I don't know if the publisher is Alfaguara or someone. I don't remember. But
Alfaguara is one of my favorites.
it is an
I
award, and it's given in different countries. And the winners of the award get published, get the award published, and there are different ages. So there are some middle grade. There's middle grade. There are younger books, chapter books. You know, so for all ages. I do buy a lot of the books when I want to write in. When I want to read in English, children's books in English, I buy El Barco de Vapor because I know it's going to be good quality.
Okay, I'm gonna check it
Yeah.
out. And actually, on my article, I have a few other publishing houses that I think you can still buy books. Actually, Alfaguara is one. El Zorro Rojo is another one that I
Okay.
it's from Spain, but it has really beautiful quality books. Because
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about quality,
Yeah.
Mariana. Like there's something
Yes.
magical about a book that it has quality, like the paper and the
Yes.
cover and the
Absolutely.
colors and then you can turn the pages and the pages are
Yeah.
nice and they're not crappy like newspaper.
Yeah. No, no,
Like I get it.
absolutely.
Some
Yes.
of those books are easy, for the kids to have, but there's something wonderful about finding good
Yeah.
hardcover
Beautiful
books.
books. Yes. 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 Well, they're like anything. I think we are, as human beings, we're attracted toward things that are aesthetic and they feel good. You know, so when a book feels good, looks good, you know, you want to touch it, you want to open it, you want to smell it, you know, so it's, yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
So,
So if
and I
you
think
want your
that
child
is
to
one of the,
read,
that, that is
I
one
always
of the
say, if you
reasons.
want your child to read, offer them good books. Don't give
Yeah.
them crappy
Yes.
books. Don't give them, because even
No.
like you will be more, like, um, what's that
Well, your
word?
money will be better invested too, you know, when you have a
You
good
will
book,
be
you know, because
more
not as
told,
long.
like attracted. That's the word. You will be more
Yeah, yeah,
attracted to a book that is it has a beautiful cover and it has different
yeah,
colors and the pages are nice and smells nice.
yeah.
Like
Well,
something magical about that.
the thing with those books is that they're usually hard to produce, you know, they're expensive. So that's why
Yes,
many indie authors can't,
yes.
you know, yeah, can't
I've
afford that.
been hearing that a lot from a lot of
Yeah,
authors. They're telling me like, yeah, we want to create this book, but we ended up, like having settled with this other quality because of the money. So,
yes, yes.
and
That is
that
a
is,
problem with indie authors. So,
yes, and
because,
that
you know,
it's a lot in the ballpark also of publishers.
yeah,
So I really hope this is the year for publishers in the United States to
yeah.
start making the quality Spanish books for children and young people that we have a lot of population inside the United States that are willing to
Yes,
buy these books. Stop using us as an excuse because we do buy books. I have
yes.
3 libraries in my house, and I know for sure that many people will buy it now with buying in the internet. You know, if you
Well,
create
I
a book,
think that buying Spanish language books is a recent phenomenon, actually, because with all these booms of the immersion schools and dual language schools, so so there are more people buying books in Spanish, but it's not widespread yet. But when it is, the big houses are gonna want to publish our books in better formats, in nice formats, also because of course, that's where the money is gonna be. There's a lot of money in the Latino community, definitely.
oh
So,
yeah,
there's,
oh
yeah,
yeah.
people buy things, definitely. But I think they haven't been investing as much because, well, at least this is my experience with my kids, and I used to translate for my children's school as well for the families who didn't speak English. So when the parents who spoke Spanish bought books for their kids, they were usually books in English and not books in Spanish. And I would always tell them, but why? You can't read this book in English, it's because the parents didn't speak English. So, but you can't read this. Buy them the book in Spanish. And the parents were like, oh yeah, but my son or my daughter doesn't want to read in Spanish. So there was a lot of that. And hopefully, that is breaking, so that's breaking now. And with this
Yeah, but
emergence.
I think that's important. That's really important point because both of us are raising bilingual children,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna lie. Of course, both of my children will prefer to read a book in English because it's the easiest language for them.
Yes.
It's the mainstream language. But I have to say, there's not pressure from my part, but I have to say you have to
Yes, but you do have to do your,
instigate
yeah, you have to be the
and
parent.
having
You have to be the
school
parent.
in your
Yeah.
home really helps.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, what I usually recommended these families is, you know what? If you want your kid to love books, you have to read to your book. Sit down with your child, read together, talk about the story together. So if you feel comfortable reading in Spanish, so I would ask them, what's your favorite language? You read in English or in Spanish? No, I can't read in English. Then read to them in Spanish. Write the book in Spanish and read to them in Spanish. Your child is going to understand. Maybe they won't understand all words, but they will understand in context. Or talk to them, show them the picture, so they will understand the words in context. And they're going to be learning more Spanish, because parents usually are afraid that their kids are not going to be able to speak in English and people will make fun of them, which is
but that's not
absolutely
true.
not. No, that is
That's
not true.
not
We
true.
already know that. Yes, and
And
I would
actually,
always
there's
tell
a
them
lot
that.
of studies that already show what we
Yes, yes.
do. Even if you don't speak the language, but you read the language that you already know to your child, uh, those skills will translate to the other language.
Yes,
So
yes,
that is not
yes.
an excuse, but the reality and the sad reality is like we are in times where people are not seriously taking into reading in
Yeah,
general.
yes.
And I have to say I struggle because we are in digital times. My children will prefer to watch whatever, even a YouTube video sometimes. So that's why you have to be intentional. That was the word. Be
Yes,
intentional. I have
intentional. Yes.
to surround them by good quality books for them to be enticed to read.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It has to do a lot with, but also, I want to say, because I'm usually asked because I write books, technology, there's nothing wrong with technology. Technology is beautiful, and it's a tool. And there are many ways to read too. If kids are more inclined of reading, of being
In a
on the
Kindle,
electronic,
yeah.
then get a Kindle and read. I have them read on a Kindle, get the electronic version of the book. So, I think technology is on our side. We just have to use it wisely. And I hear also many parents who come and say, "Oh, my kids don't want to read anymore because they're always on the phone." And what are they doing on the phone? Oh, well, they're reading the news. Okay, well, they're reading. They're reading, and there are also articles. for example, my oldest child, he's 17, and he reads when he has to in school because in
Yeah.
his English class, but he's reading constantly on his phone, and he knows everything about what's going on. When the GameStop thing happened, he
Yeah.
was very well informed because he had been reading, about it. So that's reading as well. That's informing yourself too, so yeah, there are ways to use technology in our favor as well. So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
in that thought, I also want to be mindful about the families that may not have the money to buy books.
Oh, well,
Um,
yes, yes, of
a
course.
recent thing, for me is like sometimes, I get the book, we read it as a family, and then we can donate it to your local library.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the reality is like a lot of families, may benefit themselves. So in our local library, we have a wonderful selection of Spanish books, thanks to people that have donated them or
Okay.
donated collections. And I'm very thankful, like seriously, about that because a lot of these books sometimes are really difficult to find. Like
Yes,
you
no,
will
that's
never
true.
find them here in
Or
the United
the
States.
librarians have no idea what books to buy. That's the reality. That's why this now there are lists, the Pura Belpré Awards or some other lists that there are, they will start buying from them. That's why these awards and lists are so important. But I was going to say about this is when I moved to the United States, one of the first places I went to because I needed to use a computer, I didn't have a computer, was the library. And my mind was blown away because if you've ever lived in a South American country, I don't think you've seen a library like the ones we have here. And even when they're considered poor libraries here, they're nothing compared to what they are. We don't have that culture of
Well,
going
I'm
to the
not gonna
public
say
library.
that in Bogota. In Bogota, we have like amazing libraries. Like one
Well,
of
not
my favorite
okay.
buildings were libraries, and till this day, like I miss being in those spaces. Like they were colonial houses sometimes, but full of books. I have this love of books. Like what can I say? I'm a bibliophile.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in Peru we had, for what I remember, the National Library, which is beautiful. I mean, yes, of course, there are libraries and the buildings are beautiful and it's magical. But there's not that culture that you go to a library every
Oh
week
no.
and you pick up like
And you
this.
cannot take out books like here. Like
It's
here,
not.
you can pick up whatever book you find
Well,
for
everyone,
free. And
you
and
live with the
seriously,
stuff this day. Yeah.
familia, es gratis. Es
Yes, yes,
gratis. O sea,
yes, it's
así que no
gratis.
tenga un ID o lo que sea, nada más lleve dos documentos con su dirección y
Mm.
pueden sacarle la tarjeta de la biblioteca a sus hijos o hasta ustedes mismos. Yo voy una vez a la semana a la biblioteca
Yeah,
y
same here.
estoy súper agradecida por la biblioteca
Yeah,
y me gusta donar. Por ejemplo, ahorita no están cogiendo libros por lo de COVID,
yeah,
no
for COVID.
están
Yeah.
recibiendo donaciones, pero ahí ya tengo unos libros ahí que digo,
Yeah.
mire, ya mis hijos ya no los leen, pero son
Y están
libros de
listos.
calidad en español que yo los voy a donar, porque yo no tengo ahorita el espacio tal vez o algo, yo
Yeah, of
que no
course.
quisiera que mis nietos, ¿no? Pero,
Claro,
pero
claro.
hay que
Hasta que te
compartir el
lleguen.
conocimiento, gente. A veces la gente me dice, ay, ¿yo para qué me voy a comprar ese libro? Digo, léaselo y después lo comparte. ¿Cuánta
Claro,
gente en la comunidad quisiera tener el libro?
claro.
Esto es algo muy bonito que de repente si alguien ve este live y se inspira, compren
Sí, no,
toda la
sí,
colección de Mariana y la donan a su local library.
sí, ahí la leen y de ahí ya la donan. No, another thing that I think is important is, since, like I was saying, librarians usually have no idea what Spanish language books are good, or they go with what they have. It's not their fault, basically. You
No,
don't have that knowledge of
because
that
many of
culture
them don't speak
language.
Spanish.
Exactly. And they, only guide themselves to what they see from the publishers that they send literature and stuff. But what is really good is at us as patrons of the library to go and request some books that we know they're good. Say, hey, I've read this book, or, I think you should have it in the library, or I want to request this book in Spanish. So they will request, and they will actually appreciate those requests because, that will help them too to know what people want to read. So
Yes.
that's very important to request the books in
That
your local
makes a
library.
difference in the community. And I have to say, of
Yes.
course, some communities have more patrons that speak Spanish. And of course, we have more Spanish books in our local library because we
Yeah.
have way more people that want to read in Spanish. So it's it's just a variety, especially here living in the United States. But
Yeah.
still,
Well, in my
thank you
library,
so much.
in the one that is close to me, the Spanish collection I think is very poor. Last time I was there, I looked and I'm like, eh. No, I usually buy my own Spanish, language books, and yeah, so I don't really get them
Yeah,
off the
but those
library.
are
But
things that I feel like are so important as well. And those are
yeah,
things that we have to keep building up. Because if we
yeah,
know that,
yes,
like we have a lot of community in our nest that will be benefited from it. And that's something I have always, as a parent advocate in my school board, I always tell parents, like if you don't have anywhere to go and you want to go for activities for free,
go to the
go to
library.
the library.
Ah, yeah.
Oh
Yes.
my God, I love my libraries. And I go to
My kids love the
super
library. Yes, I would say, okay,
when
let's
we
go
were
to the
closed.
library.
I was so sad because I was like, oh my gosh, when are they gonna open again? Now we have to go, with covered,
Oh,
with the
okay.
mask
I think
and
that the
and
library is
in
closed
our
here now.
hands. And if we
Yeah.
touch a book, we cannot put it back. Like we
Yeah.
have to put it in the basket. But still, I'm so thankful for local libraries, and
Yeah,
I'm
no,
thankful for
exactly.
Spanish collections in our local libraries. Because bottom line, like I always say, you don't have to speak Spanish to start learning Spanish.
Well, that's what I tell people also who want to learn Spanish. I tell them go and read children's books. Hello, so
The
that's the
best,
best.
the
Yes,
best.
those
It's
are
the
the
best
best to learn
introduction to
Spanish.
any language.
Yes,
The
with
best.
any language. I read a lot of children's books to learn English too, so they help me a lot because usually the sentences are shorter and they're constructed in a more traditional way, more following the La RAE's guidelines. So they're a little bit more, the syntaxis is more, straightforward.
Sure. Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't have
and
to
they're
worry
shorter
so
and
much
more,
to,
yeah, and you
like
learn the
all these
grammar. So,
transition verbs and all the things that the Spanish has. But
yeah,
I always say, like borderline, just try to surround yourself with quality books. And I
yes,
think,
yes.
making the point to speak up. If you don't find these books, find the time to speak to other people in your community. Try to find the time to write to the publisher houses. Or even write it in your social media, making a point that we do want to see more of these books. And I
And
think like
also,
right now it's seriously the only way we can
yes.
start seeing some
And
change.
also, I think at this moment in time, it's important to give, I, not to pick up a book that was translated. I mean, again, I have nothing against translations, but, also, try to boost authors who are writing in that language or come from that background, or, yeah, who have written the books themselves in English as well. There are many. I remember I did a reading at the library not long ago. I was going to read one of my books, and the other person who did the reading in Spanish, he brought a book. I don't remember what book was it, but it was a very famous book in English, and he brought the translation of the book in Spanish. And I was like, really? So many authors, from
That you
writing.
can choose from.
Yeah, I was like, now we're celebrating la Semana de la Latinidad or something like that. And, and well,
Even
yeah,
worse.
the book was in Spanish. Okay, yeah, I give you that. But, I mean, choose
Yeah,
a Hispanic background.
that by itself, because Mariana, I have to say, it's not like you're telling me this, but I have seen it so many times at so many
Yeah,
other people.
yeah, sure.
Like the people settle to the minimum, like to
Yeah.
kind of like say, oh, but we did this, and I'm like, but that
Yeah.
was not
Oh,
really
yeah. Oh,
actually
yeah, but
happening, right?
I'm gonna read Thomas the train engine in Spanish. Okay, well, just read.
No, and actually that was my issue. But anyways, we can speak for hours, but we already went over an hour. I
Okay.
want
Oh
to
wow.
save everybody time, and hopefully I will be saving this in our IGTV. And but thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm so glad that we did because I admire your work
Oh,
and I
thank
love your
you.
book. And I think it's amazing that you are doing it because I have to say, a lot of people, especially a lot of Latinas, get
Mhm.
intimidated by this, publishing business, or we think like, oh, my writing is not good enough, or
No,
and
no.
I have to say, everybody has something to offer, especially if you are coming from this culture background that
Yeah, well,
needs.
and like I said, your writing is not going to be good enough if you don't write it. If you don't practice it, if you don't, work the craft. Because yeah, there's a work behind it, but I have done it. I do it every day. Anyone can do it. So it's not magic really. So yeah, people who want to write, they should write. And I'm actually working on. I'm going to be giving a workshop about publishing. It's going to be in Spanish for
Oh, great!
yeah, for
Anyone who will be interested in doing that, please
in
follow
writing in Spanish.
Mariana. Just give us your website and your information.
Well, you can follow me here on Instagram, Mariana Writes the World. My website is marianallanos.com. And yes, and I'm on Facebook too, Mariana Llanos author page, and I'm on Twitter, Mariana Llanos. So,
Yeah, tell us
I'm
everything
everywhere.
because remember, this will be saved, so they may not be necessarily able to go directly to your link. That's why I always like for
Okay.
people to tell their websites or everything.
Yes.
That way, people when they can watch the rewatch,
Yes,
they
I'm,
can
I'm gonna write
go.
it on the comments as well, so so people know where to go. But yes,
Awesome.
I'm gonna be doing some workshops for people who want to write, and I'm gonna be doing those workshops in Spanish. So for Hispanic people, for Latino, Latina, Latinx, people who
Latinx.
want to Latinx. I can't say
No,
it
it takes a
honestly, but
while to get used to
yes,
it, but
I
you can
can't
it's
remember.
gonna be.
Yeah, I
It's
can't
gonna
remember if
happen.
it's Latinx, Latin. I get a bit
Latinx,
mixed up in my
like,
head, but
like the last one is Latinx. Latinx.
Latinx
Because, yeah,
in
because you
Spanish,
cannot say
Latinx,
Latins, like
Latinx.
it's
Yeah,
an accent and
yeah,
we are not
it's weird.
respectful. But anyway,
No, but
thank you
yeah,
so
exactly.
much. Thank you so much, and hopefully for your launch for the next book, we will have
Yeah,
a giveaway on my
May,
website.
in May, definitely. Yes, we'll do something in May for that book.
Okay. So thank you everybody who joined in. I hope this has been helpful. Espero que les haya gustado. No vi ninguna pregunta. No sé si alguna persona tiene alguna pregunta. La verdad es que estaba como tan interesante la charla. Pero en este tema podríamos hablar horas.
Or if they leave a question, they have a question, they want una pregunta, they can put it there. I'll probably come back to the comments and answer, or they can just send me a message and I will be glad to answer.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mariana.
Gracias a ti, Johanna.
Bye. Gracias.
Bye.